From San Francisco, it's Grumpy Old Doc with Dr. Gene Bede.
Hello, this is Dr. Gene Bede, and welcome to the Grumpy Old Doc. Well, it seems our friends, the pharmacy benefit managers and the PBMs and the drug companies just can't behave themselves and stay out of the newspaper. It's the New York Times this time, and they have an article that was published this week called "Take the Generic," patients are told, until they are not. We all know generics are cheaper, and most of us seek out generics so that we can pay less out of pocket. That copay. Maybe it's $10 for a generic, maybe it's $90 for a brand, and that's exactly what we like to do and exactly the thing that some people are finding they cannot do for certain drugs. Adderall XL, Zetia, Agranox, Voltaren Gel. People are oddly enough finding that they go to the drugstore and they're told that the insurance company will only pay for the brand medicine and not the generic. So people are ending up spending $90 out of pocket instead of the $10. Well, that seems kind of odd. Why is that? The reason it's happening is because of rebates and the total net cost to plan sponsors, whether they're insurers, a self-insured employer. Now, there's a lot of ways drug companies can make their drugs pricing more attractive. They can give a discount. They can say, hey, we're going to take 20% off of you. You're our best customer. Or they can give a rebate, which is given after the fact, even though the provisions are agreed on before the sale. So it could be for every dollar of our product you get 20 cents back. I have never seen a PBM prefer a discount over a rebate. They always prefer an equal amount in rebate over discount. I'm not going to go into that particular topic, but think for yourself why that is. I don't think it's random. So a rebate is offered by a drug company to a PBM to prefer that product. That sounds suspiciously like a kickback to me. Kickback? We're talking about Medicaid and Medicare programs as well as private insurers. And the Social Security Act talks about what a kickback is, and it provides criminal penalties if an individual or an entity knowingly or willfully offers, pays, solicits, or receives remuneration to induce the referral of business reimbursable under federal or state health care programs. Gosh, that sounds an awful lot like rebates. Now, how can pharmaceutical companies offer kickbacks legally? It's because of safe harbor provisions in the law that says it's okay to offer a rebate. Why did they do that? They thought it'll bring costs of healthcare and drugs down. So a safe harbor says, look, if you let everybody know what you're doing, you're transparent, you let the person who's buying the health insurance, the employer, the insurance company, the person holding the risk, if you let them know about this rebate program, and the PBM reflects that rebate in what they charge the insurer, it's all okay. But if it interferes with clinical decision making, it has no benefit to the patient, it increases costs, it results in overutilization, if it raises concerns about safety or quality of care, that's not so good. And the government will find plans are in conflict with that safe harbor and are indeed offering kickbacks disguised as rebates. The most notorious case came a couple years ago. Guess which drug? Purple crack. AstraZeneca agreed to a $7.9 million settlement. The government alleged that AstraZeneca knowingly conspired with a pharmacy benefit manager to keep its purple crack in a preferred formulary position, even though there were competing drugs that were less expensive. So they really slapped their wrist. $7.9 million, that's all of 0.2% of the $3.6 billion with a B dollars that AstraZeneca made off of purple crack off the same time. So let's go to my favorite drug company, my favorite little vignette, my little story that fills me with warm and fuzzy feelings about the type of people that are running the government and running our drug company. And that would be the Epi Pen. So let's talk about the Epi Pen. 30 years ago, the EpiPen was first developed, from auto-injector technology that the U.S. government had developed so that servicemen could stab themselves in the thigh to give themselves antidotes against nerve gas. Really cool idea. Combine it with epinephrine, adrenaline, a long-known hormone that exists naturally in the body and was isolated many moons before that, and bring together a handy little gadget that would allow people who have severe allergies immediately inject themselves with a life-saving dose of epinephrine, even if they had no medical training and they really weren't comfortable with a regular needle. So about 10 years ago, 2007, a company called Mylan bought the rights to manufacture the EpiPen, which had transferred from a number of companies over the years since 1987 or so. They had about 90% of the market, and when they bought it, a 2-pack cost $90. Let's talk a little bit about Mylan. We certainly hear from the drug companies all the time about why drugs are so expensive, but because of the huge risks they take in basic research, looking at these fantastic new molecules, many of which never pan out or are not commercial successes. Mylan does none of that. Mylan is a generic manufacturer, and what they do is they buy rights from people to manufacture drugs, and they don't do that kind of research that costs millions and millions and billions of dollars. What did they do? In 2009, they took the same basic EpiPen, they gave it a stronger spring, some better safety features, and a little clearer markings and instructions. The 2-pack went up by $10 to $100. That's cool. But in 2013, it was up to $265. By 2015, $461. And by 2016, $609 for a 2-pack, a 500% jump in price in only 7 years. At the same time, Mylan was growing the market. They were getting it in schools. They were getting government backing to get it, EpiPens, in the schools. And their CEO, Heather Bresch, whom we all know from testifying on the Hill about the bizarre nature of her pricing, she did pretty well. Over the time that she was increasing the price of EpiPens by 500%, her own compensation went up by about 671%, from $2.5 million to nearly $20 million. Watch her testimony before Congress sometimes when she's asked if she overcharged for the EpiPen and how she stalls and flutters her eyelids and says it's a fair price. That gives you a pretty indication of what she considers to be fair. There's no foul balls in this woman's universe. Everything's in play. Everything is fair. What kind of universe does she operate in? Well, she is the daughter of Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia, the same name that we hear all the time about in the Senate. He's the swing vote. He's the Democrat from the Republican state that might do something to improve our healthcare system. Well, this is what he's done so far. He appointed his wife, Gail Connolly Manchin, to the West Virginia State School Board. That's Heather's mom. Back in 2012, the National Association of State Boards of Education started a policy initiative to get EpiPens in the schools, and they advocated for state laws helping schools stock EpiPens. In 2013, it passed Congress, which of course Joe Manchin was a member of. Joe's helped his daughter out before, though. Back about 10 years ago, it came to light that Heather had been claiming she had an MBA degree, even though she only completed a little more than half of the required credits at West Virginia University. Turns out Daddy had used his connections to get her an executive MBA degree. Subsequently, it was rescinded when it was brought to light. These are the kind of people we're talking about. They did nothing wrong and they'll never do it again. They'll do anything, and anything is considered fair until someone calls them on it. The federal government, they came in and spanked them for the way they classified EpiPens and subsequently charged federal programs for it. They did have to pay a $65 million fine. But there was no punishment for raising the price of the EpiPens to $600. Mylan did nothing wrong, and they'll never do it again. They promptly introduced to the market a $300 generic competitor. And it's the same thing again and again across the drug companies, folks. There's nothing the government can do about a drug company charging $80,000 to cure your hepatitis C. There's nothing the government could do about Pharma bro Martin Shkreli raising the price of Daraprim by an obscene amount. He's going to prison not for that, folks. He's going to prison for things that are totally unrelated. But the government has not come after any of these folks for violating the federal anti-kickback statute. What's happening today in the EpiPen market? Well, like I said, Mylan did nothing wrong and they'll never do it again. They immediately introduced a $300 EpiPen when their usurious behavior came to light. So now everybody can get those generic EpiPens, and there's some other competitors that have hit the market as well. No, not really. Why? Because of those rebates. So there are certain buyers that are still requesting that people fill their prescription for an EpiPen with a certain type of EpiPen that they get the most rebates for, even if it doesn't mean the lowest net out-of-pocket cost for the consumer. And the EpiPen is such a poster child for this game. Take a look at a competitor that's hit the market called the AviQ. Wonderful little device, much nicer than the EpiPen. It's like a smartphone. It tells you what to do. It fits in your pocket, and it's $4,000. What on earth is going on in healthcare that a product that costs $90, that's been around for 30 years, you put a few bells and whistles and an app on it, and you think people are going to pay $4,000 for this thing? That's ridiculous. But it's somebody else's money. If it's the health insurance company that's paying for it and you like the AviQ better and you can get your health insurance company to pay for it, well, why not? But still, if it's a $4,000 EpiPen and you got to pay, let's say, 10%, that's $400 out of pocket. You're not going to do it. You're going to stay with the old EpiPen. The good folks at Kaleo that make the AviQ, they figured it out. They've got a copay assistance program. And if you have any sort of commercial insurance at all, they'll pay your copay for you, right? It's really, really nice. It's really, really cool. But think a little bit about the implications of this pricing and reducing the copay in this instance. Will your insurance company really pay for it all? That remains to be seen. Will you get stuck with it if they do pay for it? And let's say at a far discounted amount to $4,000. You don't have to pay anything. That's cool. What's going to happen when Kaleo stops their copay assistance program? Is it going to be okay with you to suddenly pay way more? Or are you going to start demanding your insurance company cover this product? What about the ability of your insurance company to get a rebate that they might pass on to you for EpiPens? Kind of gets distorted if all of a sudden everybody wants to go on the AviQ. And what happens to cash buyers? If I want that AviQ, but I'm paying out of pocket, I'm going to pay $4,000. And we come back to the New York Times article for those drugs that do not have any copay assistance. People are paying out of pocket. And who's walking away with the rebate dollars? The PBMs, the insurers. Is it coming back to the patient? Hardly, when their decisions are making you spend more money out of pocket. And in a story on CBS News this morning and others that have covered this phenomena, the insurers, the PBMs, act like, oh, gee, did it increase a little bit of copay pain for our members? We didn't realize there's a lot of different copays out there, a lot of different benefit plans. Obviously, some folks choose to pay more copays, and we can't help it that our efforts to have the most cost-effective formulary, including rebates, cause some people to pay more out of pocket. I call horse hockey. The drug companies and the PBMs collude, these rebates are paid, and the PBMs explicitly calculate their exposure when they put their formularies together. And the way it works is they want to make sure that the money lost from a high copay for a branded product when they shift to a generic is made up by the reduction in price by the generic. What it means is if the copay for a generic is $10 and it costs your insurer $25 for that prescription, they're essentially paying $15, you're paying $10. So it's a $15 prescription for them. On the other hand, if there's a branded drug for $100 and your copay rises to $90, That drug only costs them 10. And so what they say is that the benefit design is doing the heavy lifting for them. No longer do they have